Coming to you from the greatest city in the world, this is the #1 showbiz podcast. It's Talk for Two. Here's your host, Matt Bailey.
Thank you, Gary. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Talk for Two. You heard Gary right. I am recording this back east, but today is going to be awesome because we have not one, but two interviews live from Las Vegas. This is the first of 3 episodes Talk for Two will be bringing you from the playground in the desert. We've never, ever done an episode on location in Sin City before. And my good friend, my brother from another mother, Chris Ortiz, joined me and was a huge help in so many ways during the 8 days that we were out in Las Vegas. Thank you so much, Chris. As usual, I want to also give a big thank you to our season sponsors, Axtel Expressions and the Tangent Bound Network. But today, we have another sponsor to thank for helping make our Las Vegas shows a reality. Terry Fader, the voice of entertainment at the Mirage. I implore you, please, the videos don't do him justice. You have to go see Terry live. Impressions, ventriloquism, it's crazy. Through getting to know him over the last couple of years, I've seen his show probably over a dozen times in snippets and in person and whatever. It never gets old. He is a once-in-a-lifetime entertainer. You do not want to miss him. Make sure the place to see him, is the Mirage at the Terry Fader Theater. That stage was built just for him, so it's perfect sight lines all around to see his show. There's screens even if you're in the back, but still, if you're in the back, you get a straight shot view of the stage. And of course, he tours on select weekends through Middle America, and he comes east. So please make sure you go see him. In fact, he's coming east to our East Coast Northeast listeners. He's coming to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and somewhere in Connecticut on the 12th and 13th of August, so please go see Terry if you can. He's not to be missed. I love him as a person, but his talent just blows me away. All right, so go check it out. On with the show. Our 2 guests today, Murray, the celebrity magician, and Dan Sperry, joined me at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas. Let's start with Murray, whose full name is Murray SawChuck. You've seen him on America's Got Talent, Pawn Stars, and more television shows. Currently starring in his own show at the Sin City Theater inside Planet Hollywood, Murray invited me to see him perform and then sat down with me to discuss what it takes to build a team, create and find illusions, and put together a great Vegas act. From putting the untraditional spin on the traditional sexy assistant to featuring other world champion performers on his show, Murray talks about magic as a collaborative effort. He performs 5 to 6 times a week, and if you're on your way to Vegas and want to see him perform live, head over to murraymagic.com by clicking the link below. Now, his interview is a little shorter. It's about 15 minutes, so remember, we have 2 interviews today. I want you to stay tuned after Murray for more Magic from Vegas with Dan Sperry. Here now, though, to tell us how years of touring landed him in Las Vegas, our interview with Murray SawChuck. Murray SawChuck, welcome to Talk for Two. How are you today, sir?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for inviting us to your show and meeting us here at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas.
Thank you. Well, thanks for coming by, man. Appreciate you being here.
Oh, it was great. Great show. I got to begin at the beginning, as I do with all of my guests. How did you get started in magic?
I got started in magic like anyone in the sense of it. I got the magic kit as a kid, and I just didn't throw it away. And I kind of worked on, I was a professional dancer, and I played music, so I was always on the stage from the age of 5. So when I got magic, it was just another device to get attention or to be on stage. So it's pretty cool.
That's wonderful. Who were your inspirations growing up when you really got into it?
My inspirations were other acts on TV. Like, I watched Fred Astaire, Phyllis Diller, Bob Hope, Milton Berle. It's funny because they weren't magicians, And then when I was younger, I saw Copperfield vanish the Statue of Liberty. And that's when I knew, wow, this is going to be a really big deal. I mean, because I knew it wasn't a power. I knew it was a skill of observation, and he was very good at it. So that's kind of how I got into the business. But I really saw a lot of old acts that I loved. I mean, another act I loved was Cardini. He had the monocle and everything. It was a really, really cool act. One of the best I've ever seen.
When did you start with doing the hair and making that your character?
Well, I watched on Rod Stewart. I watched MTV awards show, and when I was there, I saw him in his late 40s, early 50s. You know, he looks cool. He looks really cool, but he was older, and I thought, you know what? No one in magic has that look, and I'm a big fan of Phyllis Diller, and I'm a big fan of any people that have that kind of look, and I'm big on branding. So I thought, you know what, let's give it a shot. So one Halloween I did it just for the hell of it, and then I thought, well, you know, if people started to say you look kind of cool with that look, with your height, your face, and the style, maybe you can do it every day. And I thought, you know what, that'll work. So I started doing that, just trying it out.
So that's just how you wear it normally?
Yeah, now I wear it normal like this, yeah.
That's great.
It's pretty easy to do, and it's ridiculous, but if I want to hide, I can just change my glasses and wear a hat, you know.
And you can really, really see it from the stage.
Yeah, it really stands out. So
now you talk about those inspirations that weren't magicians, but I know that you earned your college degree in broadcast communications and journalism. How did studying comm help with your development as a magician or entertainer in general?
Well, you know, the greatest thing about communications, if you're studying it, it is exactly that. It's about communication. The beautiful thing about being an entertainer or just being a human being is we have to communicate, unless you're a hermit and live in the middle of the forest. So I think by getting a degree like that, it helps you in anything. If you're a salesman, if you're a music teacher, if you're a real estate agent, if you're a rental car, you know, worker, because you're interacting with people, you know. So for me, it was a really, really cool thing, just because of the fact that I really wanted to excel as being an entertainer. So it taught me how to interview people, listen to people, and all that stuff, and also speak and use my voice and the way I talk, just because of the fact that it's one of those things where I think it's really important. I don't care what you're in. It's really important how you approach people, because that's what life's all about, you know what I mean? So
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, what you talked in the show today about touring all over for 20-some odd years. Where did you tour? What venues?
I've been all over the place. You know, I started my first place out of the States that I really toured was Japan. I did 6 months there in 1994, years ago, and I loved it. I had a great time. I was just south of Osaka in Japan. And then from there I started touring to Brussels and France and Germany and Lebanon and England and China and Vietnam and Singapore, all over the place. So it's the nice thing about magic is that it's a universal art, you know. In my show here in the States, I do a lot more comedy. When I do go overseas, it's more visual, obviously, because I don't speak every language, you know.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about the show today.
Yep.
Now, you talked did I hear you right? You were saying you were a dancer, but you were also a musician?
Yeah.
What instruments?
I started playing the accordion because my background, I'm 50% Ukrainian and then 50% Scottish. And so my background, Ukrainian is kind of is a European type of instrument and from Ukraine and Poland. And so I started doing that, and then it's very funny. I was doing that, and I was also Ukrainian dancing with the big red pants. So by playing the accordion and Ukrainian dancing, I was on a really bad track of being single for the rest of my life. So I changed all that. But I started doing magic, and then as I got into my mid-teens, I quit doing music and dancing because I was trying to do so much, and I focused more on magic, and obviously it's been pretty successful for me.
Absolutely. Because the reason I ask about that is because today you use magic, and I don't think I told you this, but I'm also a magician myself. You use magic for effects that you wouldn't think to put background music under. What do you look for when you're selecting music? Does the music inspire the piece, or the piece itself inspire a type of sound that you're looking for?
Well, sometimes music does inspire a piece. You hear a really cool song, and you listen to something and go, man, it would really be cool to do a newspaper tear to Prince's Purple Rain like I do in the show. And then you do it and you go, wow, it's really effective because it's just such a great song. It's slow and it works with something like that. Sometimes you hit it out of the park. So you try to maybe build something that fits a song. And then for the most part, though, it's usually an effect. And then you want to find music that actually works to the effect. Because at least I work from an effect point of view, not a musical point of view. The odd time you'll hear a cool song, but I usually look at items and go, well, that'd be a really cool idea if we did this. And then I create the idea, and then I go, well, what kind of music am I going to have to put with that, So.
Absolutely, and that's piecing the bits together, but what about piecing the show together?
The show varies, you know what I mean? I think it's very important to have endings on pieces. I mean, people don't realize that when you have music in your show, it's to let the audience know what's going on. People don't realize the only reason a scary movie is scary is 50% to the music. Like if you have a hallway, it's dark, and you see a couple of doors with lights shining in from a distance, and that's the shot of the TV camera. And then you see the camera slowly moving down the hallway. And if they got like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang playing, yeah, it's great. This is no problem. It's a walk in the park. But if they have a really slow, piano piece playing that's got lots of chords and the odd wrong note, oh my God, you're freaked out. But nothing's changed. It's the same hallway. But music can change things just like that, and that's how it works for magic. It's very important. I see so many people use the wrong music for the wrong piece because they just like the song. Well, it's one thing to like a song, but it really should cater to what you're trying to sell on stage, because it really benefits the effect, or it can go the other way and make it anticlimactic.
Absolutely.
So when my show, I have my bits, but through transitions I'll use music just to end things. Like say I vanish the bottle in my show, well I use a 6 to 8 second piece just as a crescendo, because now they know it's over. It's just a nice way to transition to the next thing. So.
And like you have, and this is interesting because in my show I have an assistant, and I have to figure out where to put his bit. How did you and Lefty work out where he goes in the show?
Well, Lefty is originally from a really well-known magic team back in the early 90s called the Gamesters. They had a red and a blue character. One was it's like spy versus spy. And one was evil and one was nice and comical, and he played the comical part. He wore a red jacket with a red bowler cap, and the other guy wore like a blue fedora with a blue jacket. And they did this like spy versus spy kind of act where they're, kind of one-upping each other. And so they did that for a while, then that vanished. He was my friend. He's been friends with my best friend for like 20 years. And I said, why don't you do your card act in my show? This is way back when I had a show at the Frontier Hotel. And we're talking 2002 in Vegas. And I said, you're always helping backstage. Why don't you come out as a janitor or something? Same card act, but let's go. So we drove to Walmart and bought a Dickies jumpsuit. And I had a Home Depot hat. And he threw in a Home Depot hat, and we gave him just a regular broom and a dustpan. And then I'd make a joke, and then he'd come on stage with music, and he'd just pretend he's sweeping up. And then all of a sudden the act evolved. Well, that actual card act is from his main act he did for like 20 years. So he just changed the premise, the look of it, and now it works really well. And then when he was in that, I just kept building little bits I would do, and these are bits I would do with stagehands if I toured or traveled. But then when he worked back with me, I would cater them more to him. And in this show, obviously, he's a big feature on the show,
That's incredible.
So, yeah.
Now, here's a question. Is there, stupid question, but is there ever a show where he can't do, he's booked out somewhere else, and you have to fill in that time?
Sure, yeah, he gets bookings in touring. I've designed every bit, except for his act, obviously, to be done from a stagehand point of view. So my fishing pole bit, I can have a stagehand do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the other actions he does on stage and jokes, they're built for someone I could teach within seconds. And the worse they are at it, the better the bit is, because that's the idea. Yeah, all my bits for Lefty is he really doesn't care to be on stage. He's like, oh, him again, me, meaning me. Now that one act, well, I got so much material. If I have to switch somebody, I just don't have somebody do the 6-minute card act. I just mow right through it and do my own thing. So, but the bits are still in there. They're just not as, they're just not as vibrant.
Do you two write together? Do you two write?
Yes, we do. Sometimes we write once in a while. So, a lot of times we will sit down and over a bit. I mean, people don't realize on America's Got Talent, they actually his idea was Vanishing the Train. That was his idea.
Wow. Sorry, Chris just saw Paul Zerton.
I know, yeah.
Run out, and I
He's a good friend
Paul
of mine. Yeah.
A while ago. He and I, we've known each other. We've known each other for a while, and he did my show, and we were trying to say hi, but he's not been responding to my emails. Anyway,
oh, really? Oh, there we go.
We'll cut that part out. Let's talk about April.
Great. Yes.
Real quick.
Sure.
How'd you find her and put her in the show?
April is awesome. I mean, I did a casting call for an assistant last fall, 2015, and I was looking for a new assistant, and I had over 100 people audition for the role of my assistant, and I wanted to go with a different look, and I wanted something edgier. Because we play a lot of performing arts centers, casinos, we tour a lot. I'm doing a lot of YouTube videos now, so I want an edgier look. So she came to the audition, And when she walked in, she's in great shape. The haircut's phenomenal. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go this route because there's not many magicians that have an assistant that looks that kind of trendy or cool.
And it goes with your hair thing.
It goes with my hair thing. It's great.
Yeah.
And she's, a beautiful girl as well, and obviously in shape. So that's kind of how that happened. I went, people like, wow, she looks really harsh. I don't know if that's a good way to go. And I said, you know what, I love making a statement. So that we made that change. And I used to wear an electric blue suit in my show. I got rid of that for more of a hoodie with a letter of my initial on it and a few other things. So
nice.
So it's
Yeah,
good.
you have a few costume changes. What's your favorite effect to perform in the show?
My favorite effect to perform in the show, I think, is my newest one, which is where I vanish the guy's cell phone and it appears in the balloon. But the card that I had somebody pick even before that appears inside the guy's cell phone case. So that's my newest trick I put in the show this last 3 weeks.
What's your favorite effect that another magician performs? You don't have to name it, that you don't perform. What's your favorite effect to watch?
One of my favorite effects to watch, I would think, one of my favorite effects of all time, there's two, but one of my favorite effects is David Copperfield's dancing ties. His dancing tie routine, years ago he did, and also his Lady in Red routine, where he had a girl with a red cloth he covered, and she floated above the audience, and he just pulls the edge of it and it falls off her, and she disappears completely. So,
beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, my last question. We got about 3 minutes left, so
Sure.
you can take a little bit longer with this answer. I never let my guests escape without asking this question. What is your advice to somebody that wants to become a magician?
My advice to somebody that wants to become a magician is stay in school. No. My advice is, if you really want to be a magician, don't, and it's a bit of an old-fashioned way, don't go on YouTube. Don't buy videos, buy books and learn magic that way. Because what's happening now is people watch the online videos, or they see these videos given them, and they learn how the secret's done, and they go, yeah, it's not for me. Well, when I was growing up, we didn't really have much. We had VHS tapes, but it was even before VHS tapes. So I had to read a book, and in the book it would say, vanishing coin in hand trick. Well, I couldn't see it. I had to learn it. So I would read the instructions. You put coin in this hand, you hold it back here, and so now you practice this, and you go, really, is that what? And you do it in the mirror, and you go, oh my God, there it is. That's what it looks like. So now I've learned it already. I've worked hard to master it, right? And now I can do it. Whereas most times now what happens is people look and go, oh, it's too hard. I don't want to do it. Oh, it doesn't look that good. I don't think it's right. And they pass off these amazing tricks. They pass off these really great tricks because they look like they're too hard or too easy to do. And unfortunately, I think a lot of young magicians are getting handed how to do tricks nowadays. And my other pet peeve, and it's a huge pet peeve of mine, there's no magicians that are honorable in keeping secrets anymore. The minute somebody invents something and they go win an award, they go and sell the trick. It happens all the time. And I'm from the old school of, if you invented something, keep it until you go in the grave. Because that's pretty cool for a magician to have that. Because all the old school guys did that. They shared a few things. That's how a lot of us learned. There's a few tricks they never did because they didn't need to. It wasn't about money. It was about keeping a secret or keeping something to yourself. Now people are so excited to become famous for inventing a trick and giving it away right away. Well, you invent a trick and give it away right away, it's not a trick anymore because you're exposing it right away. And to make $10,000 or $20,000 off giving a trick, that's not going to change my life any. You know what I mean? It's nice, a good chunk of change.
Right.
But by giving it away after you invent it and winning an award, I don't feel like it really does much for our art form, because these kids, I think, are getting handed these really cool tricks and not working hard for what they're getting, you know what I mean? So
absolutely. Well, Murray SawChuck, thank you so much. Everybody, I want you to come see his show at Planet Hollywood. Please come see him. He's at the Sin City Theater right here in beautiful Las Vegas. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you, Murray, for all of your hospitality. On to our next guest. I had the pleasure of seeing this gentleman perform not in Vegas, but on Broadway as part of the Illusionists. Dan Sperry sat down with me to talk about his journey and love for magic, as well as the differences between New York and Las Vegas audiences. We talk about everything from his early days falling in love with magic thanks to some truly classic entertainers, guys you wouldn't think a performer known as the Anti-Conjuror would be inspired by. In fact, we talk about the very development of Sperry's goth persona and the funny story behind how he found the Anti-Conjuror name. Of course, we also touch on his time with the Illusionists. Sperry is one of the only members of the cast to have stayed with the show since its inception and throughout its various incarnations. So we were able to talk about both Broadway runs in 2014 and 2015. I saw the show last year. Sperry returns to touring with the Illusionists this September, and the show, unfortunately sans Dan Sperry, returns to New York for a third engagement this holiday season. If you want to see the Illusionist tour dates at which Dan will be appearing, check out dansperry.com by clicking below. The tour commences September 23rd in Tampa, Florida. Now, a quick technical note before we throw to the episode. We recorded this episode at a restaurant inside Planet Hollywood's Miracle Mile, and we were sat right by the kitchen. So my apologies for the clanking and clamoring, which is especially noticeable in about the first 10, 11 minutes or so. But that's what I love about being on location. It's guerrilla all the way, and you never know what's going to happen. Here now, to give us the reality of being a full-time magician, our interview with Dan Sperry. We are here at beautiful Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas. I have my co-producer, Chris Ortiz. Chris, say hi.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
We are here with somebody I have loved for a long time. I've loved his character, his persona, his magic, and I saw him on Broadway last November. We're here with Dan Sperry. Dan, how are you, sir?
I'm okay. Thanks for having me on your podcast here.
Well, thank you so much for doing it. It's great. We're at a bar here at Planet Hollywood, so if you're wondering about that ambient noise, let's jump right in because I want to keep this. I got to run here, as you know, at about 3 or 3:30 for the other thing. So we got to jump in. How did you get started in magic?
I got started in it when I was a little kid. My grandparents took me to see Copperfield, and I didn't know what magic was because I was like 4 or 5. I mean, I knew what it was, but I didn't know magic could be like big and theatrical and grand and, you know, with lighting and fog and music and all that stuff. I think pretty much my only real exposure to it at the time was like birthday parties or library shows, you know, being at school, you know, seeing somebody come to school or whatever. And so I didn't know what I was in for, and I didn't know who Copperfield was either. I had no idea. So I was just excited to get to like stay out on a school night or something, you know. Yeah. And so I'm this kid, we go to the show, and he opens the show. The first thing he did was this thing called the Death Saw, which he has to like escape from being chained to a table before this giant spinning buzzsaw blade comes down and cuts him in half. And then the premise is the trick goes wrong. Blade falls too soon. You visibly see him get cut in half without any boxes or anything. He was like the first guy to really do that. And it freaked me out. It freaked me out. I thought I saw a guy die. So I started having this spaz attack, and I was like freaking out. And we had to leave the theater, and I just couldn't calm down. I couldn't wrap my head around what I just saw. And yeah, and then so we didn't go back in. I didn't see him get put back together. I never saw the end of the show. And so that was my introduction to magic. And then as sort of like a home therapy, I was given some magic kits and, you know, books from bookstores back when those were a thing, and you know, and that's kind of, it slowly kind of started from there, just out of the curiosity of the education that it's an illusion, it's a magic trick, it's, you know, that kind of thing, you know. So
absolutely. Well, I would think after seeing that, you would want to stay away from magic as much as possible.
yeah. I mean, for the most part, yeah, you'd think so, but it really got me curious to be like, what, you know, how is this, you know, affecting people, I guess. You know, I got affected in a weird way, and it wasn't like I saw it and I was like, ooh, that's what I want to do. That looked amazing. It was more like, the hell just happened? What's going on? You know, I have probably the exact opposite reaction than I bet 99% of magicians when they see a magician to get them started and you know, pique their interest and curiosity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned Copperfield. Who else were some of your inspirations? Who else?
You know, I can mention some, maybe your listeners, you know, because there's some crossover within our communities. So perhaps there's a guy named Don Allen, who is from Chicago, really great close-up magician. He's awesome. You know, there's a guy named Shimada. He's this old Japanese magician, but really great stuff. Shimada, and another guy, Neil Foster. I mean, I could name a lot more, I think, but it's a lot of them are dead. So there's that. I was late to the party. I think my spirit's from a different generation maybe or something. But these were like the old school classic guys. Really cool, doing really knuckle busting, badass manipulation stuff. And it was that kind of stuff that really caught my eye and inspired me.
Well, young guy that you are, how did you find them? How did you find these older?
Reading about them in books, getting a hold of some old VHS tapes at the magic shop, when I was growing up. There'd be like these weird little like homemade montage-y, things, and I would. That's how I, came to find them. I mean, now it's easy because a lot of people are starting to put that stuff on the internet. So you can see some of these great old videos. I knew a guy who had a old like 8mm projector, film strip that had some of these guys doing their stuff, and then he had to set up a video camera and record with his old video camera of the projection screen itself, and then take that and try and duplicate that. I mean, this is like some real like old school primeval stuff.
Wow, that's awesome. So of course we. I want to touch on this while we're talking about your beginnings. Where were some of your first shows once you got into it?
My first shows were probably the same, like a lot of most of us in this kind of weird alternative form of entertainment, sort of umbrella that we're in. Little family block parties, little nonsensical shows like that. Like, oh, the little neighbor kid is into magic. Maybe we'll just have him, come to the block party and do some tricks or something. It started, simple stuff started like that, and then it eventually became like a library, going to a summer reading program, show or a birthday party. And I was from north central Minnesota, where I grew up, and so there wasn't magic around me. I was I was blessed and cursed, because I had not a lot of sources to learn from. There's a lot of trial and error. So, but at the same time, I was kind of the only guy, or at that time the kid, right, that had something to offer in terms of that kind of entertainment. But there was a local guy who was a clown, and he did it kind of on the side. He would do clown shows, would do like, Boy Scout, Cub Scout shows and that kind of stuff. And he was getting out of the business back then. And so I got to know him, and he started kind of helping teach me, showed me how he, puts together his show, and then he started referring the shows that he didn't want to do to me, and that's kind of how I got my foot in the door that way. And then it was, it was old school. Like, I was learning how to take out ads in the newspaper, or saving up, my money and taking out a yellow page ad, and a yellow page phone book when those were a thing, So it was like all that stuff.
Well, you're touching on the second part of what I guess is a two-part question, so I want to back up a little bit, or move forward a little bit, I guess. Where did the idea for the Anti-Conjuror character come in? Where did this goth persona that you developed and perform as now, where did that start?
It's always been something that I've been doing as I grew up. I was into old monster movies when I was a kid. My dad, when he was a kid, he used to like dress up as who was it? I think was it Boris Karloff who was the Mummy? He would dress up like Boris Karloff, and he introduced me to like Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney and all these guys that play Wolfman and Dracula and Frankenstein and all this stuff. And so we would watch these old like black and white monster movies. I thought it was great. And so from there, I also wanted to be a pirate, because I was way into Disney, a big Disney fan, still am. And I wanted to be Captain Hook. I thought it was something that could be a thing. And I think that sort of transition and had my interest, because I would always dress weird. I would make clothes up. One time I went to school. I went to preschool dressed as a pumpkin from a Halloween costume, and it wasn't even fucking Halloween. I just went, and I just lived in this make-believe world, all the time, and so that, as I grew up, just developed into, and then you start to discover, different cultures. Once you approach middle school, and you sort of find your friends in whatever cliques that you're going to roll with throughout the rest of your academic years, and those are the ones, you sort of fuel each other. So I was the more kind of gothy one. Me and one other friend were kind of the gothy ones out of the punk kids, if you could, want to label them. Mm-hmm. But it's not very punk to label yourself, right? So can't say that. But it was like that. Like, we got into the Ramones, we got into Rancid, and then I discovered stuff like London After Midnight and Christian Death and all these other weird bands like that and stuff, and Iggy Pop and all these guys. So that's who I ran with, and that's what I dressed like and was into outside of performing. But coming from Minnesota, being a teenage kid, I can't roll into Tommy's 12th birthday party looking like a lunatic. So I'd have to sort of tone down the image when I was on stage until my resume and my age allowed me to boldly declare that, this is what I'm going to do, and allow my real self into my, at the time, stage persona. So I came up with the name Anti-Conjuror, though, when a buddy and I were at a magic convention, and probably like when you guys have ventriloquist conventions, all these other, entertainment conventions, sometimes you're sharing the hotel with another type of convention, and there was a volleyball tournament going on, a girls' volleyball tournament. So there's all these like beefed up, butchy, ripped, 8'10" volleyball chicks, right? And a bunch of, dork magicians running with card tricks. So I told my buddy that I was there with, we're like 16. I'm like, look, man, we can't tell them that we're with the magic convention because they'll never talk to us. Like, because they're just getting like, face fucked with a deck of cards every 2 seconds. And so like, we can't do that. We can't be those guys. So I was like, what we need to do? We need to say we're in a band. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, let's just say we're in a band called Anti-Conjuror. And it just came out like that. And he was like, yeah, okay. And I was like, in the back of my head, I was like, well, that sounded kind of fun. That was fun to say. And it's got a cool little weird sound to it. Let's just go with that. And it just kept it in the back of my head until I started, when I moved to Chicago and moved away from home when I graduated. And so I started, opening for bands and DJs and doing stuff at like goth clubs and, industrial nights and all this stuff. And I didn't want to have in any of the ads, the flyers say like magician Dan Sperry, because that's not cool. People might get turned off by that, So it was like I kind of wanted to slip under the radar. It'd be like, kind of like what you guys do ventriloquism, kind of like Otto and George, trying to break in and do like, some real edgy, true to yourself, this is what you're into things, and hoping everybody else will like it. It wasn't easy, so I had to sort of find ways to, smoke screen and backdoor my way into the scene of live performing, and that was in, little, I don't know, concert halls, basement, basement bar, stages 8 inches off the ground that are full of, sticky beer from the night before. It's like Fight Club, or something.
Now, the reason I asked that question about the Anti-Conjuror is because I had the pleasure of seeing you on Broadway in the Illusionists. And what I noticed is you come out, it's very intimidating, very goth, very cool, intimidating in a cool way. But then you break it down, it's just you and like a Leffler case, and you bring up these people from the audience, and you are as classy as I think those old acts were that we were talking about, not 10 minutes ago. Now, was that an intentional decision, or is that just a part of how you were raised?
No, I think it was just part of how I was raised. Minnesota nice, nice conservative Republican family that I come from, so I think that has a lot to do with it, and it's just kind of playing fast and loose with an audience member and just seeing how it goes. I don't really keep to a script. I don't really follow any of that sort of protocol. I just kind of roll with it and we see what happens. It's a runaway train.
Now you have the Minnesota accent now, but like I said, I did not notice this when you were on stage. Do you find it goes away?
No, I usually try and cover it, and I'm also drinking a scotch at 2 in the afternoon, and that might have something to do with it as well.
Oh, scotch 2 in the afternoon. This Vegas is the only place, we're staying at the Mirage. Vegas is the only place that I think you can get a bacon flavored milkshake.
I didn't even know that. It sounds disgusting though.
No, maple bacon. It was really good.
Oh God, no.
Digression.
I agree.
Yeah.
Digression. But now, how many years did you live in New York?
I lived there just about 3 years.
3 years, and you performed there, your own show.
Yeah, I had my own off-Broadway show that ran there right in Times Square. 42nd and 8th, there's a whole venue that was built around the concept of a year-round haunted house with 2 haunted bars, and then there was a theater, and they wanted to put my show in the theater, so I did it 6 nights a week in this 300-seat theater. Did over 500 shows during that time, and it was awesome. It got named Best of Manhattan twice in a row, and got a bunch of other accolades and awards, and I was really, it was really one of the best times of my life, was just being able to do my show every night in my own theater right in Manhattan, and and I was 26. Who at 26 can do that? It was just a huge blessing and an honor, and it was the best time. Being able to just do whatever I do, unbridled, uncensored, just go for it. It was a great time.
Right. Now you're flying back there in just a few short time. This was the only time we could squeeze this.
Yeah, I'll be flying out tomorrow, I think, or Tuesday. I don't remember. I got to check my app.
What are you doing out there? Is it rehearsal for the return to Broadway?
Nope. I won't be going back to Broadway this year. There's a different version of the show. I'll be going to Toronto, which is totally cool with me because I love Canada. Get some Tim Hortons and go watch some hockey and all that. But no, I also work about twice a year. When I have the availability, I'll go and work this really dark, nefarious nightclub called The Box, and I go and work there, and it's a bunch of eccentric, very artistic acts, and I'm honored to be one of the few magicians that they allow to perform there.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, we talk about New York, we talk about Vegas. What draws you specifically to the audiences in New York? And I think in that we can differentiate between audiences in Vegas and audiences in Manhattan.
Yeah, I love, they're just real. I love just being around real people, and it's just the scope, or maybe not the scope, the gamut, the catalog of people that you can play to in New York is amazing, and they're real, they're down and dirty, at least the scenes that I gig at in New York, and they're just great people. I just like the vibe. I like the energy. I like the realness. If they're not gonna lie to you. If they like it, they'll let you know. If they hate it, you'll definitely know. There's no wishy-washy in between.
Yeah. No. And what about Vegas audiences? What do you like about them?
Well, I might not like them at all, but
do you like them?
It's well, I've been spoiled. I loved it when I was here because when I first was asked to come here, I was loving it. Barely out of high school. Now here I am getting to come and perform in Vegas and being asked to do it by just being scouted out, and it was incredible. And I think the overly tourist type with the there's no challenge. I like a challenge. I like I like to spar with my audience, and I can't really spar that well in Vegas because everybody's just happy. Everybody's having a great time. Everybody, they got their margarita, 20 ounces of margarita around their neck with the giant, cups and stuff, and that's great. They're obviously having a great time. They're loving it here, and I think that's great. I think that's perfect. But I wouldn't say that I can achieve the same high that I get. I still love it. When I gig here in Vegas, it's great. But the high and the challenge is much more real, like with those East Coast audiences.
Why do you think that is? You talk about them being real. Any other philosophy or theory? I love thinking about the audiences wherever I am.
Yeah, I I don't know. I'd be curious to see or hear what maybe. But maybe some of your other listeners have experienced as well if they're in a form of entertainment. I think what it is I think it's just I don't know what the word I don't like people say there's something in the water, but I think it's I think there's something in the vibe of Vegas. It's cut loose, it's party, it's no worries, break or steal, kind of concept. I think in New York it's coming from a different place,
It's coming from a blue-collar place.
Maybe a blue-collar place. Because granted, there's tourists in New York, don't get me wrong. I had tourists in my off-Broadway show. But I think it puts them in a different mindset, different focus. It's it's trash on the ground. It's rust on the metal of the bridge. It's all that just nitty-gritty, really amazing, salt of the earth, backbreaking, everything. I think that just infects you when you're in Vegas. I think just the party atmosphere infects you. You breathe it in. If it's in the air, it's whatever you want to call it. But that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm just getting too weird about it. But that's how I feel.
No, there's no wrong. There's no right. Now let's take it international. You've performed all over the world with the Illusionists.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, is magic truly universal. Let me explain. Are the reactions the same worldwide? Say you do, a Dove production.
Yeah.
Is it, or is there a distinct appreciation for different effects from country to country?
I don't think there's a specific appreciation, but relative to whatever the country or even the city or the area of said country, the reactions come from a place that's unique to what that area is going through, which I think is really great. We were in Serbia, right? Mm-hmm. And what everybody just everything looked like I was watching it through like a gray filter lens. Everything seemed like I was looking through this cinematically gray filter lens with maybe a little dust and scratch happening, like old 8mm style. But then they came in and there was cockroaches on the walls of the theater, tiles breaking down, and these people show up and they're cold and they just sit down, and we start the show and boom, man, they change. And it was watching them let go and forget and just let go.
I'm sorry, where was this? I missed
Serbia.
That. Serbia, wow.
And just let go. It was great. And we're doing the same stuff we would do for somebody in like Adelaide, Australia. And they still react the same too, but it's just the Australians are just like, hi, everybody loves surfing or whatever. And that's not a dig at Australia. I'm just saying, that's just how they are. They're just happy. They're just happy people. They love life and they live it up every day, and that's great. I've had so many great times in Australia, but like, it's just different, and Germany too. I got a big following in Germany. I go back about twice a year and do my own show, and every time it's just, there's this sort of thing that Germans don't have a good sense of humor or whatever. They actually really do. You just got to know how to tap into it, and so just being around all these different cultures, they do react the same. They do have that same reaction to amazement, but watching said culture transform from coming into the theater, sitting down, show starts, boom, to when they leave the theater, sometimes is really cool. The metamorphosis that happens, is really great.
That's really awesome. Now, you have not a question on the list here, but you've performed all over the world with this specific show. Is there a moment, not even just a show, but a moment with an audience member, a moment where something happened on stage that is the most memorable to you?
Yeah, I was in New Zealand and I got this, I put it up on the internet because it was just nuts. The chick was like a total nut job. But she, and I spontaneously find these people. So I threw an object out into the audience and this chick comes up and she was clearly on something. She was on like some Molly or whatever. And boy, she was just out of her mind on stage the whole time. And I just rolled with it. Instead of sending her back and starting over, I'd gotten in too deep. And I just rolled with it, and it's. I mean, you guys can look it up online. Just go on YouTube. It's probably one of my most hated videos ever. I have to delete. I have to delete hater comments on there like twice a day. I go through I do the purge of hate comments. But it was just a crazy thing that you never know. You never know what you're gonna run into with these audiences, and regardless of where you are. And she was probably one of the most memorable people ever. Yeah.
And speaking of the Illusionists. You were part, am I correct in this? This is what my research showed me. You were part of the original 7. Mm-hmm. What do you think of the different incarnations? The way it's growing?
Well, we never knew that it would happen. I've been in every version. I'm like the only one left that's been in every version of the big show. And we weren't here. We were in the Venetian. When we were putting it together, a bunch of us that were at the time confirmed and contracted to do it met at the Venetian. We went up in the hotel room with legal pads and sodas and bottles of water and coffee, and just sat down. And it was like it was like what I imagine sitcom writers doing in a writing session. Just what do you got? What are you gonna do? What do you think about this? Pulling up YouTube videos on our phones. Well, here's the clip of the video of the routine. How are we going to put this in a show? Let's not do that. You don't get to do that bit because it's too similar to something this guy. And we just built a really rough outline of the show. And we had no idea what we were going to pull off until we got to Australia that very first time. And within...
Why Australia?
Because it was a thing for the Sydney Opera House originally. So we started at Sydney Opera House. And it was just supposed to be a one-off, as part of their summer program, right? And so there you go. We're there. And next thing we know, they're adding shows, adding like half another week of shows. We all said we can stay on. So now, next thing you know, we're there 3 weeks, made like over $4 million.
Wow.
The Opera House is, freaking out, going, oh my God, we didn't know, because the show didn't exist. There was no show. We made it and threw it together and just jumped in with both feet and sink or swim, and it swam. And then from there, it snowballed so quick. And then before you knew it, before we even done with that run, word had spread within the, the theater booking community. We had already booked Singapore and Mexico, South American tours, and it just went off. It went crazy, right off the deep end, man. It was nuts. And the wave has just been going ever since, because nobody has done a big touring magic show like that since Copperfield. And I shouldn't say since Copperfield, because the guy's not dead. I mean, he's still kicking ass and taking numbers. But but he's doing his show at MGM here, so he's not really even touring that much anymore. And nobody is. Nobody's touring. Nobody's doing big stuff. We're like 4 semis deep, 2 tour buses. Cast and crew of 30 people. Like, nobody's doing that anymore. We're rolling around like a real Broadway show. Like a real, like Catswood or Phantom of the Opera or something.
Well, what I had loved about it was that Hobson could be Hobson, you could be you. Everybody could be everybody. I've known of Hobson's work for a while.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. But there was still cohesion. And it was, like you had said, you're not going to do this. How do you put that into the structure of a show?
Yeah.
So, is there a moment on the tour where it all finally came together and clicked in?
Maybe. I don't remember that. I don't remember that happening. I just kind of remember we just do it, Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me. I have to ask, and I have a prediction of what you're going to say, but since you have done all of the incarnations, do you have a favorite Broadway one, either 14 or 15? Do you have a favorite run on Broadway?
Well, that's a tough answer. The original Broadway run was crazy, and it made people crazy and do stupid things and act stupid. The producers, the backers, they were acting stupid. The magicians were acting stupid because we had all this pressure, all this pressure to live up to. We didn't know what was going to happen. It was like Sydney Opera House all over again. But then people start acting stupid because they get panicked, they get scared, and they act stupid. The producers were making stupid decisions, and they were acting stupid and saying stupid things. Us as performers were saying stupid things and doing stupid things because we just had pressure. We were panicked and we didn't know what was going on, But that adrenaline of going in, and we set records, broke records, kicked other Broadway shows' ass. And that's not me trying to puff up my chest, and say, oh, screw every other Broadway show. That's not what I'm saying at all. They do amazing things too, but to see when we saw we're outselling Matilda, we're outselling Phantom of the Opera, we're outselling these staples, we were like, oh my God, we're the new kid at, the school lunch hour, and we don't even know where to sit down, and already we're the most popular kids in school. How'd that happen? That kind of thing. So that was great. But coming back to Broadway, the second version of the show, the last one, probably the one you saw, I think was the best. I mean...
Did you prefer the Neil Simon over the Marquis?
Yes. Yes, I prefer the Neil Simon over the Marquis. It's just that the old, ornate, it's a real looking Broadway house, It's great. And the show was great. I mean, we did some serious gnarly stuff. I mean, you saw Jonathan Goodwin, the guy getting out of a straitjacket. Everybody gets out of a straitjacket. So what? Big deal. You can see that at the county fair. But the dude sets himself on fire. He gets doused in gasoline and sets himself on fire while getting out of a straitjacket. That's just insane. Craziness.
It really is. Now, those 2 years, I know that you have a set act and the show was set and blah, blah, blah. But as a magician, the answer might be no to this, and I'm taking that risk. But what kinds of creative freedoms did actually sitting down and not running here, running there, flight to Australia, flight to, Serbia, wherever, what kinds of freedoms did sitting down in a Broadway house allow you as a magician, as a creator, and as a performer putting something together?
None. I'm actually more silenced and I'm more silenced and what's it called? Where censored. Mm-hmm. I'm more silenced than censored because it is a family show. I walk a fine line because the demographic that I appeal to has value that comes to the show, and I understand that. The bosses understand that, but I can't go full out like I could when I was doing my off-Broadway show, where people knew what they were getting into. I'd mentioned Otto and George, right? Otto and George is a great act, and whatever Otto was doing, to come up with this stuff, he knew, this is what I do, this is what I am. And I'm not saying I'm as brilliant as Otto and George or as, whatever, famous or nefarious or infamous, whatever. But, like, it's just, it's a thing like that. Like, I understand the censorship. So, no, I didn't have a lot of sitting down. I got to do that on my own time and go, as soon as the curtain came down, I got to go cut loose and do whatever I wanted and film stuff and work on stuff and plot and plan. But outside of that, I know what I need to do to bring to the table for the show to make it good and make it successful. And if that means, reeling in, the hounds a little bit and dialing it back for the suits, I understand I have to do that, and I respect that. And that's kind of how it is.
Mm-hmm. Last question, because like I said, we got to run here. Never let my guests escape without this question. What is your advice? Like I said, like I was telling you before we started, we began in the very niche community of magicians, ventriloquists. Now being in New York, I'm very grateful to be able to get to interview all kinds of cool people, but I like to get their advice in their particular areas. What is your advice to people that want to become magicians?
All right. This is what I say to most, whether they're young or old. Depends on what you want to do. It's a great hobby. It can be a great hobby. It can be a great side project to exercise creative expressionism, to just have little puzzles, to have something and work on and have to constructively make a gimmick, something that makes the magic happen. That can be a great relaxing exercise, much like I imagine when people who make model battleships, or something, or model cars. It's just like a very cool Zen-like exercise to have to sit down and think, all right, kind of like when Apollo 13, the filter broke. And they dumped out the stuff on the table, and they said, we got to make an air filter out of this. You got an idea with magic. It's a great exercise. Just be like, I have this idea. How am I going to make it happen? I have Scotch tape, I got rubber bands, I got a paper towel roll. How am I going to do this? That's the best part. And don't ever lose that, just that artistic exercise. Don't go for the likes. Don't go for the views. Don't go for the shares. Magic is supposed to be done live. Magic is supposed to be seen for real, not through a screen, whether it's TV, whether it's internet, whether it's smartphone, whether it's tablet. Magic has no business being on there. That's a vanity platform, and it's no business being focused on that. That's a false idol, sort of goal. You should never make magic about yourself. You should make it about your audience, whether that audience is plural or singular. Whoever you're showing things to, let them just sit back, relax. It's like because you know what's coming as a magician. You know what's coming. So it's like when you give a Christmas present to somebody and you know that you got them what they wanted, but they don't know that yet, but they have an idea. We've all opened is this what I think it is? Is this it? And then they kind of think they already know it's that video game or that DVD or that pair of shoes or that dress, and they think, is this it? I think this is it. This is what I asked for. And then they open it, oh my God, it is. And they just, everything goes away. Everything, it's like the walls just like Jericho. They just come down and they break away and they go. And that's great. And that has nothing to do with you. That should all be about them, and let them bask in that. Don't make them kiss your ass and praise you and we as magicians especially are not preaching gospel. Like, you need to let the audience experience that. And never make it about yourself, because that's just selfish and that's wrong, and that's using magic for evil. And also be prepared to be broke as shit. Like, because that's going to happen. You're not going to have money. Your bank account's going to be in the negative. And how can you handle that without getting an ulcer? Because if you want to chase it, you're going to be broke. You're going to have to eat peanut butter and jelly and bologna and all this stuff. Or you might not eat. You might have to skip meals, because you got to pay rent. You got to pay, oh, God, don't even get me started about, because when you're doing this, you're an independent contractor. You're responsible for your own bills, your own stuff. So Obamacare, what a shit show that is. So now no, I'm not trying to make it political, but it's the truth. The guy fucked up. It's terrible. Obama's an idiot. And now we have, as independent contractor, my health insurance is crazy. I just want to do magic, and here I have to do all this, and even if I am sick, I'm not going to the doctor. Screw that noise. I'll tape my finger and just keep going. So it's ridiculous how much overhead you have to have. What your nut is to just exist as a human being in this world anymore. To live comfortably as a human being, your overhead, your nut is so deep and so crazy. And magic is not the type of art form where you get an acoustic guitar and you can write another song. No, you have to, you gotta, what's the next thing? You gotta stay ahead. You could buy a deck of cards, but you're still gonna have to get the book to teach you the sleight. You're still gonna have to get to this to continue your exercises. It's crazy. It's a weird, vicious circle. Just don't drown yourself in it.
Wonderful. That is a great and honest and fantastic way to end this. Dan Sperry, right here in Planet Hollywood at Las Vegas. Thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We're going to see some titties now, right?
Thank you, Dan. I hope you have a great time with the Illusionists once again. And thanks again to our first guest, Murray, the celebrity magician. Click the links below to check out both dansperry.com and murraymagic.com for more from both of today's guests. That's it for us today. Stay tuned to talkfor2.com as well as Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for more from the #1 performing arts podcast. Reach out by emailing talkfor2cast@gmail.com and talk about us on social media using hashtag talkfor2, and talk about these Vegas episodes by doing hashtag TFTVegas. Thanks again to Axtel Expressions, the Tangent Bound Network, and our event sponsor, Terry Fader, the voice of entertainment at the Mirage. I can't wait to bring you more from Las Vegas throughout the month. Signing off for Talk for Two. For our co-producer Chris Ortiz, I'm Matt Bailey, reminding everyone out there to keep talking for two.
You can hear more show business interviews with the stars at talkfor2.com, where you'll also find one-of-a-kind products to improve your own show. That's talk, the number 4, TWO.com.